Now let's jump right on into Facebook targeting. So in this lesson, we're going to be really specific on Facebook targeting strategies. We're also going to be covering the current Facebook targeting options. Again, options are always changing, so always test and verify. Let's talk about targeting audiences, for example. Right here, targeting custom audiences. This is where you're going to be able to top in your Hot 28 or any custom audience that you've created. The other thing is, remember, the important thing about custom audiences is we want to make sure we're targeting the right person and we're excluding the group of people who have already seen our product or our offer. Now, I want you to keep in mind, Facebook's going to give you an estimation of these audience sizes. Disclaimer, Facebook's not going to give you an estimation of custom audiences. So if you see that right there where the yellow arrow says unknown or the number doesn't really seem to add up, because of some different privacy reasons that I could spend a lot of time talking about, Facebook doesn't make a very good estimated number here at the top. So don't be concerned if you set up an inclusion and an exclusion for custom audiences, and then all of a sudden you realize that Facebook says there's not much of an audience there, it's unknown. It's okay for privacy reasons, so don't worry if you don't see that number there. Now, let's get into actually targeting locations. This gets to be really fun. Well, we can't target everyone in this location, people who are currently there, or we hit that drop-down box, and this is great to really take a look at depending on your industry. So do you want to target people who are in that location right now? How about people who actually live there versus just people who are visiting? What about people who are recently in this location? Maybe they recently visited this, or maybe they recently went to a conference. Or people traveling in this location. Travelers are going to have a different sense of buying things than just someone who lives here. So let's use that to our advantage. So one of the things that I start to take a look at is this. Check this out. We can target the United States, of course. But the other thing, of course, we can target, well, Austin, Texas. Well, when I type in Austin, we can actually even target the DMA, the Direct Marketing Association's boundaries for where they say that we can mail and stuff, which is great. But then there's also all these other places in Austin. Okay, so we can target nationally, we can target a state, we can target a city. What a lot of people don't realize, this Conversion XL's offices, we can actually target the offices. So I love to use this when I go to events instead of buying a booth, or if I want to target very specific stores or locations or areas. What I can do is I can type in the address. Now notice with the address here, I'm only able to get into a 1-mile radius of CXL's offices. Well, what happens if CXL had a big conference like they do in Austin? What happens if I wanted to advertise just to that conference? Well, what I can do is, this is a fun, great little trick, not only just type in the address of where the location is, but what I can also do is click this little button right here called Drop a Pin, and I'm going to move a pin relatively close to the offices because, well, I want to exclude everything around the very specific spot where CXL event is being hosted. So now what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to say, hey, I'm going to drop a pin in a couple of locations to exclude those audiences, so I'm going to build a bubble that's literally just right around the event. So some of the large trade events I go to, and especially if you are an enterprise business that sponsors events, frequents events, right here, what I'm showing you right here with your Hot 28 news audience, that digital newspaper, targeting those people who are at an event can be huge for your business. But people also buy booths for events. So why not just spend an extra $1,000 or even just an extra $2,000? I mean, really, that's the cost of sending 2 or 3 staff even out to an event, even just for a day. Just take that money, target that very specific local area with your brand, your products, and your services. It's almost going to like you bought a big banner at the location at the actual event. So play with these locations, especially if you're a local business. And again, especially if you really want to target very segmented events. All right, the other thing that you can do just for a suggestion is we have a shoe client. So whenever there's a big shoe conference, either he can spend $30,000 for a booth or spend $1,000 or $2,000 of his budget just targeting that specific shoe conference because he already knows where everyone's going to be at who his target market is. Something for you to consider as you're running your marketing. Now, of course, you're going to be able to target age, gender, languages. Well, let's get into the detailed core audience targeting. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go ahead and type in a core audience. So let's just go ahead and put in conversion optimization, for example. Now, it's going to show me that there are 93,000 people in this audience. Now, the way that this works, from what I understand, is these are people who have engaged with this topic. They've written about it, they've talked about it, they've read something about it, they visited a page about it, they read an article about it on a website that is a Facebook pixel, all typically within the last 90 days. So not somebody who was 5 or 10 years ago, but ideally within the last 90 days. Well, in the example above, as we were targeting the Conversion XL offices, so what it basically says is, well, there's only 46,000 people here. Well, that's because it's not international. We're only targeting here in Austin. Actually, I believe the setting right here is just the United States. So you're going to see the interest size right here with this second arrow. That's going to show you worldwide. And then when you select a specific location, you'll see the number adjusted here. Because you're selecting core interest, Facebook will give you an estimated audience for you to look at. Again, I don't always trust that number, but it's kind of a point of reference, not an exact number. All right, targeting core audiences. So we have the conversion upsell optimization, size 93,000 people. So we know that, okay, locally we're 46,000, which is great. Well, the next thing is I have that word in there. I want to get my audience to about 1 million people. So I'm going to hit the suggestions button, and Facebook's going to give me a bunch of different suggestions about the different selections of words that I have right here. Now, what we've learned from Facebook is if I put 5 or 10 words in together to create an audience of 1 million people, that's great. I actually don't need to know what specific audience performed what. I want to get to 1 million people if I'm targeting a large audience. So conversion optimization is only 46,000 people. I got to add in a bunch of other audiences. Well, Facebook's going to figure out the right audience at the right time. So just keep on adding in your audiences. Again, in a national audience, I like to go to 1 million. But recently I was in a client's account that targets medical professionals. When I looked up, there are 13 million medical professionals in the United States. Except they put a whole bunch of words all in one interest that created an interest for 100 million people in the United States. There's only 313 million people in the US. So if we make our targeting too big, we're trading our pixel to go way too wide. Again, in the client example I'm going over, we were talking about a medical professional. There's only 13 million medical professionals in the US. See, if we get our targeting way far off, it's going to really pollute that pixel. So the other way that we can get really specific on targeting, we can click this little browse button right here. It's going to drop up demographics, interests, behaviors. I could literally do a 2-hour training just on going over all the different interests in here. So spend some time every single month looking at these different audience options. Now, the other thing that you're going to see at the bottom when you're running certain campaigns, landing page visits, conversion campaigns, you're going to see this little button right here that says expand detailed targeting criteria as it may increase the link clicks to lower cost per click. Basically what it means is this. First, always be testing. Second, what Facebook's basically said is, okay, we realize you are going after lead conversions, for example. We recognize these are the audiences that you want to go after. But Facebook believes that there may be some additional audiences you haven't considered that may be ripe for that offer. In my experience, when this first came out over a couple of years ago, I didn't really like to use it because it didn't really seem like it really helped me much. But again, Facebook wants us to lean into Facebook automation. The main reason being is if we focus on our creatives, Facebook's going to figure out everything else. So 9 times out of 10, I will select this option right now so Facebook can go out and find the additional people that I may have missed. All right, the other thing that we can target is based off connection types. So we can target people who like our page. Now, one thing I want to warn you about targeting people who like your page. It sounds like a pretty good common sense idea, but remember when I talked about core targeting? And when we're using core targeting, we're going to target people based off their interest over the last 45 days. Well, someone could have liked your fan page yesterday, the day before yesterday, a year ago, or 3 years ago. So how do we know that people who liked your fan page are still relevant? I mean, they were at that time, but I'm always cautious when I advertise to the people who just like my page. Now, friends of people who like my page by affinity, you can always test those expanded markets. A lot of times, for my experience, I like to train the pixel with core audiences and lookalike audiences, and not just because they're a friend of a friend. That seems not as detailed targeting as I like. You can always test it. I want to be more specific the way that I train my pixel. We can also exclude people who like the page. And then we have the apps, of course, and you can even target events. People who said that they would come to an event, registered for an event, that they wouldn't come to the event, clicked on the event. Lots of different ways to target. All right, assignment. Do you have a plan when creating your targeting? Consider monthly planning and strategy meetings with some deep research in your core targets each and every single month. All right, lesson recap. In this lesson, we discussed how to set your targeting inside of Facebook. We also show you how to set up very specific targeting at the national, local, and even the city level. Let's move on to the next lesson.